The clock on the wall ticked loudly, the only sound that broke the silence of the office. Anna sat in the CEO's office, her palms sweating as she fidgeted nervously in the plush leather chair. Her eyes flicked to the massive windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, but today, it seemed distant, almost irrelevant. She couldn't focus on anything but the man seated across from her. David Thompson, the CEO of the company, was a powerful figure. Tall, impeccably dressed, and always composed, he radiated confidence. He had a reputation for being ruthless in the boardroom, known for his sharp decisions and unwavering authority. To everyone at the office, he was untouchable. No one questioned him. No one crossed him. But Anna? She had always stayed in the background, quietly doing her job and avoiding the spotlight. She was the shy employee, the one who preferred the shadows, who kept her head down and did her work with little fanfare. But today, everything had changed. David's eyes never left her as he spoke, his voice smooth and calm, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made her uneasy. "Anna," he said, his voice low and almost too smooth, "I've noticed something about you. You've been with this company for over a year now, and yet, you never seem to ask for much. You're quiet, reserved. But I see potential in you. I want you to be part of something bigger." Anna swallowed hard, her throat dry. This wasn't what she had expected when she had come into work this morning. She had imagined a normal day, just another day of sitting at her desk, working on spreadsheets and reports, blending into the background like she always did. But now, sitting in David's office, she felt exposed, like everything she had ever known was suddenly being questioned. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated how small and insignificant she sounded. It wasn't like her to speak so softly, but in front of David, she felt like a child, out of her depth. David leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with an unreadable expression. "I'm offering you a chance, Anna. I want you to trust me. I want you to take a leap of faith, to go beyond your comfort zone. I've seen your work, and I know you're capable of more than you're letting on. You've been holding back, and I can't help but wonder why." Anna shifted in her seat, her mind racing. She had always been the kind of person who kept her head down, who avoided attention. She was content in her role, doing the work she was asked to do without making waves. She didn't want to be a part of the spotlight, didn't want the pressure that came with it. But here was David, the CEO, offering her something she couldn't quite grasp. Was it a promotion? A new project? Or something else entirely? "I'm not sure I understand," Anna said, her voice trembling slightly. She couldn't help it. She had always admired David from a distance, but now that she was face to face with him, she wasn't sure if she should be flattered or frightened. David studied her for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "I know you've been keeping to yourself, Anna," he said. "But I believe you have something special. You've proven yourself time and again. I'm offering you a chance to take your career to the next level, to be more than just the quiet employee who does her job. I want you to trust me. Let me help you." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. There was something unsettling about the way he was speaking to her. It was as if he knew her better than she knew herself. And for some reason, that made her nervous. She had always prided herself on being independent, on doing things on her own terms. But David's words were pulling her in, tempting her to step out of her comfort zone, to take a risk she wasn't sure she was ready for. "Trust you?" she repeated, her mind whirling. "What exactly do you want me to do?" David smiled, but there was a darkness behind his eyes. "I want you to take a chance, Anna. I want you to leave the old you behind. I want you to be a part of something bigger, something that will change everything. You don't have to decide right away, but I need to know, are you willing to take that leap?" Anna's heart hammered in her chest. She had always played it safe. She had always avoided confrontation, avoided change. But David was offering her something she couldn't ignore. The chance to change everything. To step into a world she had never known, to be more than just the shy, quiet employee she had always been. It was tempting. More tempting than she cared to admit. I need to think about it, Anna stammered, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to say no, to walk out of that office and forget this ever happened. But something inside her was pulling her toward the unknown. Something in David's gaze made her feel as though she couldn't refuse. David nodded, his smile widening. Of course. Take your time. But remember, Anna, opportunities like this don't come around often. Think carefully about what you want. The next step could change everything. As Anna left David's office, her mind was spinning. She couldn't shake the feeling that something big was on the horizon. Something she wasn't prepared for. Her thoughts raced, and she couldn't help but wonder what David was really offering her. Was it a promotion? A new role? Or was there something more to it, something she couldn't yet understand? The next morning, Anna walked into the office with a sense of dread she couldn't shake. The conversation with David replayed in her mind over and over again. She had spent the entire night tossing and turning, trying to decide what to do. She knew she couldn't stay in the same role forever, but the idea of taking a risk, stepping into the unknown, scared her more than anything. As she sat at her desk, her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept drifting back to David's offer, to the way his voice had made her feel both intrigued and uneasy. What was he really asking of her? And why had he singled her out? By mid-morning, Anna had made up her mind. She couldn't stay in this limbo anymore. She couldn't keep wondering what might happen if she took the chance. It was time to make a decision. With trembling hands, she gathered her things and walked toward the CEO's office. Her heart raced as she approached the door. She didn't know what she was going to say yet, but she knew she had to act. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away, not without a decision. David looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. Anna, he said, his tone calm. I see you've come to a decision. Anna nodded, her voice shaking slightly as she spoke. I have. She handed him her resignation letter, her hands cold as she placed it on the desk. I'm resigning, David. I can't accept your offer. David's eyes flickered with surprise, but he quickly masked it with a composed expression. I see. I didn't expect this. Anna stood there for a moment, watching him, waiting for some kind of reaction. But he didn't say anything. He just stared at the letter in silence. Finally, he spoke. You're sure about this? Anna nodded, her heart heavy. Yes. I've made up my mind. As she turned to leave, she couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. Was she making a mistake? Was she walking away from an opportunity she would never get again? But deep down, she knew this was the right decision. She wasn't ready to play in David's world, not yet. And maybe she never would be. As the door closed behind her, she took a deep breath. She didn't know what the future held, but she was certain of one thing: her life was about to change, in ways she couldn't possibly predict. Anna had barely stepped out of the building before her knees buckled beneath her. She wasn't sure if it was the sudden rush of emotions or the realization of what she had just done, but she was overcome with a wave of dizziness. She leaned against the cold concrete wall, taking in deep breaths, trying to steady herself. It felt like her entire world was spinning. Had she just made a mistake? The door to the office building had barely clicked shut behind her when doubt began to creep in. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she could turn back, march back inside, and take her resignation letter back. She could apologize to David, tell him she had misunderstood, that she hadn't been thinking clearly. But no. Something inside her told her that she couldn't go back. She had taken a step into the unknown, and now there was no turning around. It was done. But as she walked down the street, the weight of her decision seemed to grow heavier with every step. She had never wanted to draw attention to herself, never desired the spotlight. Her life had been quiet, simple. But David had made her an offer she couldn't ignore. And now, she was facing the consequences of choosing to walk away from it all. Anna had been working at the company for over a year. It wasn't her dream job, but it was stable. It gave her the comfort of routine, the familiarity of her small desk and the predictable rhythm of daily tasks. She didn't crave more. She didn't crave power, fame, or fortune. She was content in her quiet existence. But then David had noticed her. He had seen something in her that she hadn't even recognized in herself. His words had pierced through her defenses and made her question everything. As the day passed, Anna's thoughts swirled in endless circles. She couldn't shake the image of David sitting in his office, his eyes intense as he'd spoken to her. "Trust me," he had said. She couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if she had said yes. Would her life have been different? Better? Would she have been part of something big, something transformative, like he had promised? It was too late to second-guess herself now. The decision had been made. Anna spent the next few days in a haze of uncertainty. The shock of her decision hung over her like a cloud. She hadn't spoken to anyone from work since she resigned. Her phone sat idle on the table, no calls from David or anyone else at the office. The silence was deafening. She half expected a call from him, begging her to reconsider, offering her something more, but it never came. It was as if the world had continued without her, leaving her to question whether she was even a part of it anymore. On the third day after her resignation, Anna received an unexpected email from her former colleague, Linda. It was a brief message, just a few lines, but it was enough to make Anna's heart race. "Anna, I don't know if you're okay, but we all noticed you left so suddenly. People are talking, and rumors are spreading. They say David's angry. I just thought you should know. Please reach out when you can. Take care." The message hit Anna harder than she had anticipated. She had expected some level of curiosity about her departure, but the mention of rumors sent a chill through her. Why would people be talking? Why would David be angry? David. For the first time since her resignation, she thought about him again. She hadn't let herself think about him much, afraid that the thought of him would make her doubt her decision. But now, the reality of the situation set in. The CEO she had worked under, the man who had offered her a chance to change her life, was likely furious. And perhaps worse than that, he was disappointed. She hadn't known David well. Despite working at the company for over a year, their interactions had been minimal. She had only seen him in passing, heard his voice during meetings, and occasionally received a nod of approval when her reports had been up to par. He was a man of few words, but those words carried weight. He had never seemed approachable, never shown any indication that he paid attention to the lower-level employees. He was a force in the company, commanding respect from everyone around him. And yet, somehow, he had noticed her. He had singled her out and offered her something she couldn't turn down. She had been flattered, intrigued, and terrified all at once. But when it came down to it, the fear had won. Fear of the unknown, fear of stepping into a world she wasn't sure she was ready for. Now, as the days passed, that fear was starting to change into something else, regret. Anna tried to push the thoughts aside. She had made her decision, and she had to live with it. But as she sat in her small apartment, staring at the empty walls, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her resignation growing heavier. She had walked away from a chance to change her life. Maybe it wasn't the right decision, but she had done it. A week passed, and life slowly began to return to a strange semblance of normalcy. Anna spent her days applying for other jobs, but nothing felt right. The thought of working for another company felt hollow. There was no excitement, no promise of something more. Her quiet routine, once comforting, now felt like a cage. She wanted something different. She wanted more. On the 10th day after her resignation, Anna's phone buzzed. It was a message from Linda again. "Anna, you really need to hear this. I don't know how to say it, but David's been asking about you. Not in the way he asks about other employees. It's different. I think he's worried. Please, just give him a call. He's not angry, he's frustrated." Frustrated. That word stuck with Anna. She hadn't expected David to be frustrated. What did he have to be frustrated about? He was the one who had made the offer. He was the one who had pushed her to take a chance. She had thought that by resigning, she was walking away from his world, from the pressure he had placed on her. But now, she was being pulled back in. There was no escape. After some hesitation, Anna dialed the number she had kept locked away in her phone, the number that belonged to the man who had made her life so complicated. She stared at the screen, waiting for the call to connect, her heart racing. When David's voice finally answered, it was calm, but there was an edge to it. "Anna," he said, his tone steady but with an undertone of something she couldn't quite place. "I didn't expect to hear from you. What can I do for you?" The question was simple, but it sent a shock through her system. What could he do for her? What was she doing here, calling him? Was she really about to ask for something? A second chance? I just wanted to explain," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to disappoint you. I couldn't take the leap. I'm sorry." There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, Anna thought he might hang up, but then David spoke again. "Disappoint me?" His voice was low, thoughtful. "Anna, you didn't disappoint me. You made a choice, and I respect that. But I'm not just going to let you walk away from this. Not without understanding why. You've got potential. You don't realize it, but you're capable of more than you think. You always have been." Anna's chest tightened. She hadn't expected this. She had expected anger, or at least frustration. But there was something else in his voice now, something that made her question everything she thought she knew about him. "I wasn't ready," she whispered. "I know," David replied. "But you will be. Just give it time. And when you're ready, I'll be here. Don't shut the door completely. You'll regret it." The line went dead. Anna sat there, staring at her phone, trying to process what had just happened. The conversation had been short, but it felt like something much bigger had shifted between them. David hadn't been angry, but he hadn't let her go either. He had left the door open, and Anna wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. As she sat in silence, the weight of her decision pressed down on her harder than ever. Could she really walk away from everything she had ever known? Or was it time to finally take that leap? Anna couldn't stop replaying the conversation she had with David. His words echoed in her mind like a haunting melody, and no matter how much she tried to push them away, they refused to leave. "You'll regret it," he had said. But the regret hadn't hit her immediately. It lingered like a faint shadow, growing ever so slightly with each passing day. David's voice had been calm, almost too calm for someone who was supposed to be disappointed in her. In fact, he had said nothing about her resignation beyond that she had made a choice. And in that moment, it felt like she had made the wrong one. She wasn't used to second-guessing herself, but now everything felt like an endless loop of what-ifs. Could she really go back to her quiet, simple life, knowing that she had passed up an opportunity that might never come again? The next few days passed in a blur. Anna stayed mostly at home, her routine disrupted by her constant thinking. She hadn't gone out much, hadn't made an effort to see her friends or even check her email. The days felt like they dragged on, each one blurring into the next. It was as if time had stopped, leaving her in a standstill, paralyzed by the weight of her choices. But David's words kept coming back to her. "I'll be here. Don't shut the door completely." She had told herself over and over again that she wasn't going back, that she had made the right decision. And yet, deep down, a tiny voice questioned that certainty. Was she really ready to let go of a future she hadn't even fully embraced yet? What if David had been right? What if she really did have potential? The nights were the hardest. They were the only time when her mind could not escape the quiet ache in her chest. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, as if the answers to her questions were written in the shadows of her room. But they never were. Anna had always been a woman who lived cautiously, one foot firmly planted in safety. But now, she felt as though she was teetering on the edge of a precipice, afraid to fall but too curious to turn back. It wasn't just about the job or the career change, it was about herself. Had she been playing it safe all her life, afraid to take risks, to step into the unknown? The phone call from David had been unexpected, and yet, it had also been a lifeline. A way out of the self-doubt that had gripped her since the moment she walked away from the job. But now, she was faced with another problem. She wasn't sure if she was ready to take that next step. What if she failed? What if this wasn't her path at all? And yet, there was a spark inside her that refused to be extinguished. It was small, faint, but it was there. A desire to move beyond her fears. To not let her past define her, to take the leap and see where it would take her. Her phone buzzed again, snapping her from her thoughts. It was a text from Linda. "Anna, I saw David today. He asked about you again. He's not giving up, you know. I think he really believes in you." Anna stared at the message, feeling both comforted and unsettled by it. What did Linda mean by, "he's not giving up"? Was David still thinking about her? Was he really serious about this? The weight of the situation felt heavier than ever. She had left everything behind, but now there was this nagging feeling that she had left something important, something meaningful, behind with it. She knew she couldn't keep avoiding the truth. She had to face it, whatever it was. If David truly believed in her, then she needed to decide if she was willing to believe in herself. The following morning, Anna did what she had been avoiding for days. She picked up her phone and dialed the number again. This time, there was no hesitation, no nervous glances at the screen. She just pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before David's voice came through, steady and calm as always. "Anna," he said, the familiarity of his voice sending a flutter through her chest. "I was wondering when you'd call." She swallowed hard, the weight of her decision hanging on every word she was about to say. "David, I don't know if I made the right decision. I've been thinking a lot about what you said." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and then David responded, his voice softer than usual. "It's okay. I didn't expect you to make a decision on the spot. But I can't help but think that you're running from something. Something that's holding you back." Anna's throat tightened. "I'm not running," she said quickly, though she wasn't sure if it was true. I don't know if I'm ready. What if I fail?" "You won't," David replied, his voice firm and confident. "You've already proven yourself. More than most people do in a lifetime. Don't let fear decide your future. You can't live your life in a bubble, Anna. If you do, you'll never know what you're capable of." Anna felt a strange warmth at his words. It wasn't just about the job. It was about her, her potential. He wasn't just offering her a chance at something new, he was offering her a way out of the life she had been stuck in for so long. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the next step. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do next," she admitted, her voice quieter now. David's response was simple, yet profound. Take the next step, Anna. Just take one step. That's all you need to do. And when you're ready, I'll be here. There it was again. His voice, steady and calm, like an anchor in the storm of her uncertainty. Thank you, she whispered, feeling a shift inside her, a small but significant shift. The doubt that had clouded her mind began to clear, bit by bit. After they hung up, Anna sat quietly for a few moments. The weight that had pressed on her shoulders for days seemed lighter now. David's words hadn't given her all the answers, but they had given her something far more important, permission to take the next step. Anna didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she would succeed or if she would fall. But she understood one thing now: the only way to find out was to try. And so, with her heart still racing, she picked up her phone and sent David a simple message: I'm ready. The decision was made. She had taken the first step. Anna sat at her desk in her small apartment, the glow of the morning sun streaming through the window, casting long shadows on the wooden floor. It was a quiet morning, one she had been anticipating for days. Today, she would return to the office. She had made up her mind the night before after her phone call with David. She was ready. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she couldn't bring herself to type the email she had been putting off for hours. The words, "I'm back," seemed almost too simple, too trivial for the weight she carried on her shoulders. The decision she had made was far more significant than those three little words could ever convey. But there they were, in front of her. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Linda. "Anna, you sure about this? I just don't want you to regret it." Anna smiled softly at the message, but it did nothing to calm the churn of uncertainty inside her. Linda had been a constant in her life, someone who had always looked out for her, even when Anna didn't ask for it. It was because of Linda's loyalty that Anna hesitated to disappoint her. But this was her life, her choice. And, no matter how much it scared her, she knew she couldn't run from it. She typed quickly, trying to keep her response concise. "I'm sure. I have to try." The reply came almost instantly. "Okay, but I'm still worried. Keep me posted." Anna placed her phone down and let out a slow breath. There was no turning back now. She took the elevator down to the ground floor of her building, feeling her nerves tighten with every passing second. It wasn't just a job she was returning to. It was her chance to prove something, not just to David, but to herself. She had always played it safe, but today, she was stepping into the unknown. When she entered the office building, the familiar scent of coffee and polished floors filled the air. The hum of quiet conversations, the clacking of keyboards, and the occasional ring of a phone were all the same, yet nothing felt the same. It felt like she was stepping back into a life she had left behind, but with eyes wide open, ready to see it in a new light. As she made her way through the lobby, she saw a few familiar faces, her colleagues, who gave her polite nods and murmurs of greeting. They probably didn't know what to expect from her return. She wasn't sure, either. David hadn't been in the office when she arrived, and part of her was relieved. She wasn't ready to face him yet, not like this. But she knew that it would come. It had to. Anna settled into her cubicle, her fingers fumbling with the papers on her desk. She needed to focus, to prove that she belonged here, even if it had taken her a while to realize it. It wasn't about running from her past. It was about embracing the future, however uncertain it was. She couldn't afford to be consumed by her fears anymore. She had already made the choice, and it was time to act. As the day dragged on, Anna felt herself sinking into the rhythm of work again. There was something oddly comforting about the routine, the steady pace of emails, meetings, and phone calls. It was familiar, something she had known before, and in some ways, it gave her a sense of stability. But even in the midst of all that comfort, she couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation. David was still on her mind. What would he say when he saw her? Would he look at her the same way, or would things feel different now that she had stepped away, even for just a brief moment? Around noon, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from him. "I see you're back. Can we talk?" Her heart skipped a beat. There it was. The moment she had been dreading and anticipating all at once. She didn't hesitate. She typed her reply quickly. "Yes, I'd like that." The wait felt endless. A few minutes passed, then he appeared at the entrance to her cubicle, his presence commanding attention, as always. Anna stood up as he approached, her nerves flaring again. David smiled slightly, but there was something different in his eyes, something she couldn't quite place. He wasn't the same man who had offered her a second chance weeks ago. "I'm glad you're back," he said quietly. His voice held a quiet sincerity, but Anna couldn't help but feel that there was more beneath the surface. He was always good at keeping his emotions under wraps, and right now, he seemed guarded. "I'm glad to be here," she replied, her voice steady, though her heart raced. David looked around briefly, then nodded toward the conference room. "Can we go somewhere a little more private? I don't want to discuss this out here." Anna nodded, and together, they made their way to the conference room, the door clicking shut behind them. David gestured for her to sit. She took the seat across from him, folding her hands nervously in her lap. For a few moments, they sat in silence, neither one of them knowing exactly where to begin. Finally, David broke the silence. "I need to know something, Anna. Why did you leave in the first place?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now, something she couldn't ignore. "What were you running from?" Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had expected a lot of questions, but this wasn't one of them. She had expected him to be disappointed, perhaps angry, but this? It was different. "I wasn't running from anything," she said softly. "I was just scared. I didn't know if I was ready for what this could mean." David nodded slowly. "I understand that. Fear is a powerful thing. But you have to understand that running away from it won't make it go away." Anna's eyes met his, and for the first time since her return, she felt a sense of clarity. Maybe David was right. Maybe she had been running all along. But she was here now, and she couldn't let fear dictate her life anymore. Not when she had already taken the hardest step. "I'm here now," she said, her voice firm. David smiled, a small, approving smile that eased the tension in the room. "Good. That's all I needed to hear." But there was something more behind his smile, something that didn't quite add up. Anna felt it in her gut, a faint discomfort that tugged at her insides. There was something David wasn't telling her. Something more he needed to share. But now, it was out of her hands. She had already made her choice, and she couldn't look back. David stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Let's get to work then. I'm glad you're back, Anna. I'm really glad." Anna stood as well, forcing a smile even though her mind was racing. She wasn't sure what this meant for her or for them, but she knew one thing for certain: she had come back, and she was determined to face whatever lay ahead. As they left the conference room, Anna couldn't help but wonder what David was hiding. There was something more to his words, something he hadn't said. It was in the way he looked at her, the way he chose his words carefully. What was he keeping from her? The questions nagged at her, but there was nothing she could do about it now. She had already made the leap. And now, she would have to trust that everything would work out, even if she couldn't yet see the full picture. Anna sat at her desk, the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights above her the only sound breaking the silence. The office was quieter than usual, the calmness settling around her like a heavy blanket. The day had stretched on, filled with meetings and emails, but her mind was nowhere near her work. David's words from earlier still lingered in her mind, refusing to fade. There was something more to his actions, something hidden beneath his calm demeanor. She could feel it. He was keeping something from her. Something important. But what? She had gone back to her apartment the night before, tossing and turning as her thoughts circled around the conversation she and David had shared. It was clear that he wanted her back, his words, his sincerity, everything pointed to that. But what was he really asking? Was it just about the job, or was there something deeper going on? Anna shook her head. She had already decided to return, to try and make things work. She couldn't afford to overthink it. She had to prove herself, to David, to the company, and, most importantly, to herself. She had already taken the first step. But even as she tried to convince herself, she couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. The office was quiet that day, the usual noise of ringing phones and busy conversations muted. It was almost as if everyone had taken a collective breath. Anna wondered if it was because of her return. Was everyone waiting for her to fail? Or was it just her own insecurities playing tricks on her? She looked at the clock. It was almost 5 p.m. The workday was nearly over. She hadn't heard from David all day. The silence was both a relief and a disappointment. She wanted to believe that things were going to be different, but deep down, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was going to change, something she wasn't ready for. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, breaking her train of thought. It was a message from Linda. "How's it going? Everything okay?" Anna smiled softly at the message. Linda had been a constant source of support for her, even when Anna didn't deserve it. She was the one who had encouraged Anna to take the job in the first place. The one who had always pushed her to be better. She quickly typed her reply. "It's going okay. Busy, but good. I think things will work out." Linda's reply came almost instantly. "I hope so. But if anything feels off, you know I'm here. Don't let anything slide." Anna stared at the message for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keys. Linda was right, of course. She couldn't ignore her instincts, even if it meant questioning everything. But what could she do? She couldn't just confront David without any proof that something was wrong. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door to her cubicle opened, and David walked in, a serious expression on his face. He was dressed in his usual sharp suit, his dark eyes scanning the room as he stepped closer. "Anna, we need to talk," he said, his voice low but urgent. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She stood up quickly, her palms suddenly sweaty. Was this it? Was he finally going to tell her what was really going on? "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "What's going on?" David gestured toward the door. "Let's go somewhere more private." Anna's stomach churned as she followed him down the hallway. They reached the break room, a quiet, tucked-away space where employees often went to take a moment for themselves. It was empty now, the overhead lights flickering slightly as David closed the door behind them. He turned to face her, his face unreadable. Anna felt a wave of anxiety rise in her chest. What was going on? Why did he look so serious? "David, what's this about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath before speaking. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said a long time ago." Anna felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "What do you mean?" David's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw vulnerability in them. "I didn't just hire you because you were good at your job. I didn't just want you here because of your skills. I brought you back for another reason. A reason I should have shared with you before, but I couldn't." Anna blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about?" David hesitated, looking away briefly before meeting her gaze once more. "I've been keeping something from you, Anna. Something important. And now, I can't hide it anymore." Her pulse quickened. What is it? What are you hiding? David took another deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. The reason I hired you in the first place, the reason I've been so involved in your career here, is because of something that goes beyond just the job. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, Anna thought she might suffocate in the tension. She waited, holding her breath, trying to make sense of what he was saying. I need you to trust me, David continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to drag you into this. But I have no choice anymore. Anna's mind was racing. Trust him? Was he telling her the truth? Or was this just another game he was playing? She could feel the uncertainty clawing at her, threatening to swallow her whole. David, you're not making any sense, she said, her voice shaking slightly. What is it you're trying to say? He ran a hand through his hair, clearly agitated. There's more to this company than you realize. More to me than you could possibly understand. But I can't do this without you, Anna. I can't face this alone. Anna took a step back, feeling the walls close in around her. What are you talking about? What is this company really about? David's expression darkened, and for the first time, Anna saw a hint of fear in his eyes. This company, it's not just a business. It's part of something bigger. Something far more dangerous. I didn't want you to be involved, but I have no choice. You're in this now, whether you like it or not. Anna stared at him, her mind racing. What was he saying? How could this company, this place she had worked for, and trusted, be part of something dangerous? David, what are you saying? She repeated, her voice growing more frantic. What do you need me to do? David looked at her with a mixture of desperation and regret. I need you to trust me, Anna. We're in this together now. And I'll explain everything. I promise. But first, we need to get out of here. It's not safe. Anna felt the ground shift beneath her. Everything she thought she knew, everything she believed, was suddenly in question. She had walked into this office thinking she was just returning to a normal job, a chance to start fresh. But this? This was something else entirely. Her thoughts spun, but there was one thing she was sure of, she couldn't walk away from this now. Okay, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. I'll trust you. But you have to tell me everything. No more secrets. David nodded. I promise. I'll tell you everything, but we have to leave now. It's not safe here. Anna hesitated for only a moment before she followed him out of the break room. Whatever was going on, she was in it now. And there was no turning back. Anna walked beside David, her steps quick and unsteady, her mind spinning. The words he had just spoken echoed in her head, each one more unbelievable than the last. The company she had worked for, the job she had thought was just another step in her career, was tangled in something far deeper than she could have ever imagined. But David, the man she had trusted, the man who had mentored her, was caught up in it too. That much she knew for sure. She glanced at him as they made their way through the quiet hallways of the office building. His face was grim, the usual confidence replaced with an anxiety that mirrored her own. He looked like a man who was about to confront his worst fear, and, in a way, Anna realized, he was. We need to go to my office, David said, breaking the silence between them. His voice was low, almost strained. I'll explain everything there. Anna nodded, though a part of her was still processing everything he had just said. Dangerous? The company was dangerous? And somehow, she was a part of it now? It felt like a bad dream, one she couldn't wake up from. As they reached the elevators, David pressed the button for the top floor, the highest level of the building, where only the most senior executives had offices. Anna had never been up there before. She had heard rumors about the top floor, but it had always seemed like an unreachable place. Now, as she stood in the elevator, it felt more like a place of secrets than success. The elevator doors opened with a soft ping, and they stepped out into a sleek, minimalist space. The top floor was quiet, almost sterile, with large glass windows offering a panoramic view of the city below. It was beautiful, yes, but it also felt cold, like a place where decisions were made without regard for the people affected by them. David led her down a hallway toward the end of the floor, where his office was. The door opened with a soft click, and they stepped inside. The room was just as immaculate as the rest of the building, modern furniture, walls lined with bookshelves filled with business books and sleek decor. But there was a tension in the air, a heaviness that Anna could feel in her bones. David closed the door behind them, his face tight with worry. He turned to face her, his eyes flickering with something that almost resembled fear. "Sit down, Anna," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's a lot you need to understand, and I don't know how to say this, but you're involved whether you like it or not." Anna took a seat in the chair across from his desk, her mind racing. What did he mean by that? How was she involved? David stood by the window for a moment, looking out over the city as if gathering the courage to speak. He finally turned to her, his expression softening, though the tension in his body was still palpable. "I never wanted to drag you into this, Anna. You're different. You have a future. A future that doesn't belong here, in this mess." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She didn't understand. What mess? What was going on? "David," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Tell me what's going on. What mess?" David sighed heavily and walked over to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder, the edges worn and frayed. He placed it on the desk between them, pushing it toward her. Anna stared at it, her heart pounding in her chest. What was in that folder? What was so important that it couldn't be shared casually? He looked at her with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "This company, it's not just a company. It's part of a much larger operation. An operation that, for years, has been hidden from the public." Anna leaned forward, her mind whirling. "What do you mean? What kind of operation?" David hesitated before answering. "We're involved in something called Project Helios. It's a top-secret initiative, one that has ties to some very powerful people." "People who?" The sound of the door crashing open cut him off, and Anna barely had time to react before a figure stepped into the room. Her blood ran cold when she saw who it was. It was Jeremy, the CEO of the company. Jeremy's sharp, calculating eyes swept over the room before landing on Anna and David. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in the air thickened as he stepped further into the room. "David," Jeremy said, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "I see you've decided to finally share the truth with her." David stood up quickly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Jeremy, this wasn't the plan. She wasn't supposed to know." "Oh, I think she needs to know," Jeremy replied, his gaze never leaving Anna. "The time for secrets is over, don't you think?" Anna felt her throat tighten. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her, suffocating her. The man she had trusted, the man who had mentored her, was working with Jeremy. The truth was slipping through her fingers like sand. "David, what's going on?" Anna's voice cracked with the weight of her question. David's gaze flickered between her and Jeremy, and for a brief moment, he looked lost. "Anna, I never wanted this. I never wanted you to be involved in this world. But now that you know, you're a part of it, whether we like it or not." Jeremy's eyes gleamed with something Anna couldn't quite place. He stepped closer to her, his presence imposing. "David is right. You're involved now. You've seen too much. The question is, what will you do about it?" Anna felt a rush of panic. She had no idea what was going on, no idea what she was supposed to do. But one thing was clear, she had to make a choice. "What do you mean, what will I do about it?" she asked, her voice shaky but determined. Jeremy smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like a pawn in a game you didn't understand. "You can walk away. You can forget everything you've seen, pretend like this never happened. Or you can join us, become a part of something bigger. A part of Project Helios." Anna's mind was spinning. What was Project Helios? Why was she being forced into this? David's voice interrupted her thoughts. "You don't have to make a decision now, Anna. But know this, if you choose to walk away, there will be consequences. They will come after you." Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She felt like she was trapped in a nightmare, and every choice she made was the wrong one. She looked at David, then at Jeremy. Two men she had trusted, two men who were now telling her that her life had changed forever. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I need to think." Jeremy's smile faded, replaced by a look of impatience. "There's no time for thinking, Anna. The decision is now. Are you with us, or against us?" David's eyes softened, and he looked at Anna with what could only be described as regret. "I'm sorry, Anna. But I'll support you, no matter what you choose." The room fell silent, the weight of the decision pressing down on Anna's shoulders. And in that moment, she realized the truth, her life would never be the same again. The silence in the room was deafening. Anna felt like she was drowning in it, the air thick with uncertainty, her mind racing faster than she could catch up. The weight of her choices pressed down on her like an anchor, dragging her deeper into a sea of doubt. She glanced at David, his face filled with regret, his eyes reflecting a depth of pain she hadn't seen before. And then there was Jeremy, his cold, calculating gaze fixed on her, daring her to make a decision. "You've seen too much, Anna," Jeremy's voice cut through the tension, smooth as silk, but carrying an edge she couldn't ignore. "The world you knew is over. The only choice now is whether you'll join us or be left behind." David shifted uncomfortably beside her, as if he too were caught in the same web of lies and secrets. "Anna, I didn't want this for you. But the truth is, we don't have much time. You need to decide." Anna felt a knot in her stomach. How could she decide? How could she choose between two men, one who had been a mentor, the other a man who had power, influence, and something darker beneath the surface? She swallowed hard. "What exactly is Project Helios? And why do you want me involved?" Jeremy's lips curled into a thin smile. "Ah, the question of the hour." He leaned back against the wall, crossing his arms over his chest. "Project Helios is a mission, a vision to reshape the future. It's about control, about creating something bigger than any of us. Something that can't be stopped. And as for why you, Anna? You're special. You have a talent, a skill that makes you invaluable to us." Anna frowned. "I don't have any skills like that. I'm just a regular employee." "I don't." "No," Jeremy interrupted, cutting her off sharply. "You're more than that. We saw potential in you from the start. You just didn't realize it. All the work you've done here, the way you've analyzed data, put together strategies, there's something in that. We need people like you. People who can see beyond the surface, who can help us control the narrative." Anna shook her head, trying to make sense of the chaos swirling in her thoughts. "Control the narrative? What do you mean?" David finally spoke, his voice low and heavy. "What Jeremy means is that they've been manipulating the market, the media, the government. They control information. And they want more control. More power. They've been building Project Helios for years, and they need people like you to keep it going." Her mind was reeling. Could she really believe them? Were they telling the truth? But something in David's eyes made her believe he wasn't lying, at least, not entirely. "David," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What have you gotten yourself into?" David's face softened. "I didn't know, Anna. I didn't realize the extent of it. I thought I could walk away when it got bad, but it's too late for that now. I'm in deep." "But you," he hesitated, looking conflicted. "You don't have to be. You can walk away." Jeremy's gaze narrowed. "Enough of this, David. She's made her choice. The only choice she has left now is whether she wants to join us or disappear. And disappearing isn't an option." Anna felt a chill crawl up her spine. The words hung in the air like a threat, cold and unyielding. Disappear? What did that mean? Was her life truly in danger now? "Is this a threat?" Anna asked, her voice gaining strength despite the fear creeping into her chest. "Are you threatening me?" Jeremy smiled again, but it wasn't a reassuring smile. "Not a threat, Anna. A reality. We control everything. People who stand in our way, well, they don't last long." David's hand shot out, gripping her arm gently. "Anna, listen to me. This isn't a game. They don't play by the rules. But you still have a chance. You can walk away. You can go home, disappear, live your life. It's up to you." But the truth was, Anna didn't know if she could walk away anymore. Everything she had known had been shattered in a single night, and she felt like she was drowning in the lies, the manipulation, the secrecy. How could she just go back to a normal life after all of this? And if she chose to walk away, what would happen to her? What would they do? Her heart was racing, and for a moment, she didn't know which direction to turn. She looked at David, then at Jeremy, and something inside her stirred. She had to know the truth. She couldn't just run away. Not now. "I can't just walk away," she said, her voice firm, though her heart was still racing. "I can't pretend like nothing's happening. I want to understand what's really going on. What you're doing. Why you think you have the right to control everything." Jeremy's eyes flashed with something akin to amusement, as though he had been expecting this. "Very well, Anna," he said softly. "You want to understand? Let me show you." He walked over to a sleek, modern desk at the far side of the room, pressing a button on the surface. A hidden screen slid up from the desk, revealing a map. But it wasn't a map of the city, or even the country. It was a map of the world, dotted with hundreds of red pins, each one marking a different location. "This," Jeremy said, pointing to the map, "is the power we control. We have operatives in every major country, every major corporation, every government. We've built a network so vast, so intricate, that no one can touch us. No one can stop us." Anna stared at the map in shock. It was like a spider's web, stretching across the globe, each thread connected to a different place, a different influence. "This is what you want me to be a part of?" she asked, her voice trembling but determined. Jeremy didn't answer directly. Instead, he watched her closely, as if trying to read her every thought. "You can join us, Anna. Be a part of something greater. We can make you powerful. We can make you unstoppable." For a moment, Anna thought about it. The power, the control, the ability to shape the future. It was tempting, in a way. But at what cost? And was it worth losing everything she believed in? She turned to David, searching his face for answers. But David looked just as lost as she felt. He had been sucked into this world, just like everyone else. And now, he was telling her that she didn't have to go down the same path. But how could she? How could she just turn away from something this big, this monumental? Anna knew one thing for sure, she had to make a choice. And in that moment, she realized that it wasn't just about choosing between. 2 men or 2 options. It was about choosing who she wanted to be. Whether she would accept the darkness and the control, or whether she would fight back and find a way out. She took a deep breath, looking at both of them, and then made her decision. "I'm not joining you," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I'm not part of your game, Jeremy. I'm done." Jeremy's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake, Anna. You don't understand what you're walking away from." Anna stood up, her back straight, her heart pounding but resolute. "I understand more than you think." David stepped forward, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'm proud of you, Anna. You've made the right choice." For the first time in what felt like forever, Anna felt the weight of the situation lift from her shoulders. She wasn't trapped anymore. She wasn't a pawn in their game. She had made her decision, and now, it was time to move on. But as she turned to leave the room, something in the back of her mind nagged at her. She had won this battle, but the war was far from over.